we all have experienced unprecedented change. And I wanted to touch on some of the unprecedented changes that we are seeing on our network as well. It's fantastic to work in a company where some of these drastic changes are certainly surprising, but not challenging. So our networks are so robust that I'm pretty proud of the way our networks handled some of the pressure. So let's look at what are some of the few things that have gone up, gone down post COVID-19, right? So in the few weeks after the lockdown was announced, during April, Verizon customers were making more than 800 million calls a day. That's that. Just to give you a sense, that's double the amount of the highest peak during a typical year, which is Mother's Day. And secondly, not only they were calling more than 800 million calls a day, but their calls were 33% longer. And we also saw a change in behavior in messaging. So we saw more than 9 billion messages on our network in the US each day, every single day. And that's the same, just to give you context again, that's the same as a New Year's Eve. So think about every single day after the lockdown was New Year's Eve for our network. On top of that, applications people are using also changed dramatically, and gaming was up by 100% on our networks. And people connecting from home to their company's office over a VPN was almost up by 50%. And finally, we can see on our mobile network when people go between different radio towers, right? That had gone down roughly by 27%. So that means people were moving around much less. So that really showed the effect of social distancing and the effect of the lockdown. Something that I'm extremely proud of is the fact that Verizon, to my knowledge, hasn't laid off any of its 135,000 employees during the pandemic. And instead, the company has retrained around 20,000 workers for new careers. Verizon was #1 in the Forbes top employers list for responses to pandemic. So that's something quite powerful. To give you an example of how some of our dashboards have helped in the post-COVID world, is this is just one dashboard, by the way. There's several dashboards that have been built and have been helping the business. So this is a dashboard that looks only at voice data connectivity and device driver calls. And we look at the last 7 days, we look at the pre-COVID median, we look at the volume difference from the median and the percentage change on a daily basis. And then plot the whole thing to look at the different states, cities, and zip codes that are getting affected the most. So in the heat map, what you see is we factor in the zip code population, the city population, etc. So the purest and the distilled version of what's causing us pressure for voice data connectivity and device drivers is being shown in the heat map. And so at the bottom tables, those are sorted by the volume difference from median, where it's causing the most pressure. So you can see the cities, states, and the zip codes. But the beauty is, when you look at heat maps for states and zip codes like this, and then you correlate it with the Johns Hopkins data for which Tableau has built a COVID-19 data hub. So there's a web connector, we could connect to the web connector, bring in that data as well. Now that becomes, it's once you start establishing those connections, that makes, that's quite effective, quite powerful for us to be ready to serve our customers better in terms of crisis. So so this one was a good example, and this is just one example. Our workforce planning team uses the COVID data hub, the data connectors, for the home-based agent program, where we've retrained workers to be home-based call center agents. And so we tie those counties, zip codes, how cases are going up to the workforce planning metrics for those agents as well. Something that we look forward to, or something that's there on our roadmap, and what I personally aspire to a lot, is turning our descriptive dashboards to predictive engines. And I'm happy to mention that we are piloting a proof of concept. So I'm working with product managers and solutions engineers at Tableau to pilot a proof of concept that integrates Einstein Analytics predictive modeling, so which is now Tableau CRM, we just learned, into our Tableau dashboards. So I am a big fan of no-code AI and the predictive and the prescriptive analytics capabilities Tableau CRM is bringing in. And I, like Britt mentioned, I manage one of the biggest sites in Verizon. If we have more than 800 dashboards catering to more than 5,500 people. If we can bring in predictive capabilities to the existing inventory of dashboard, that scales up the solution with immediate distribution and can be quite remarkable. Also, another thing that's very enticing to me is the app designer, right? Which helps us make different tools and applications, and there are pre-built templates that I'll be exploring as well. So I'm a big fan of creating data-driven applications. I feel instead of just creating dashboards for ad hoc reporting, data-driven applications is what I would like to be building, which are end-to-end BI solutions that democratize and distribute data in an intuitive and a visual form. And in this way, the stakeholders can self-serve. So the whole idea is of empowering the stakeholders to self-serve and slice and dice millions of rows of data themselves without writing code, thanks to the abstraction that tools like Tableau CRM and Tableau and Salesforce bring in. And stakeholders can extract valuable and actionable insights at will on a near real-time basis. So with that, I want to thank you all for tuning in. It was a pleasure. And if you'd like to know more about my work, feel free to visit www.siddharth.info. That's my personal website. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or you'd like to bounce around any ideas, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. The URL end would be my first name, last name. And once again, if you would like to dive deep into the mechanics of building one of those particular dashboards that you'd like, you can visit my YouTube channel, search with my first name, last name, and I have several videos of my talks at Tableau conferences that get into the minutia and the nuances involved in those dashboards. And with that, let me hand it over back to you, Britt, for the Q&A.